official in Oregon saying tonight it's only a matter of time. The system that counts your vote is in bad shape, but it's okay to get it fixed.
On me. Need to unmute Dan. That'll put us on the top. All right, Nori, I think we're good.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Welcome everyone to the December 14th, 2020 meeting of the Bank School Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Go ahead and pass on the flag salute and the public welcome. And again, with the Zoom meeting, we won't take any audience comments tonight. So 1.5, I'll call for an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, 2.0 presentations. 2.1, the annual audit presentation. Jeff, did you want to introduce that or?
Yeah, I would if they were here. I don't think
There, are they? Huh.
Tara, let me have Jacob unmute Joni real quick. Is Tara here? So Tara's just getting on.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Hi, Tara. This is Jeff Leo, Superintendent. We also, so Joni is here as well, but I won't unmute her and go through that process. So if Tara, if you would just introduce yourself, and we are ready for your audit presentation.
Oh my goodness. All right. My name is Tara Camp, and I'm an auditor with Polly Rogers and Company. And we perform the financial statement audit for the Bank School District. So as you know, that happens on a yearly basis. And what I want to do this evening is go over the letter that we issued with the audit communication to the governing body. And that's a nice little letter that summarizes everything we're required to communicate with you. So on page 1 of the letter, we cover the purpose of the audit. The school district, the purpose is twofold.
Do you want Jeff to drizzle and talk to or?
There we go. There's the purpose. So the first is we conduct the financial statement audit, which is where we test and assess the financials created by management in order to express an opinion. And then we perform the compliance audit as is required for all governments in Oregon for Oregon municipal audit law. So if we move to the next page, we summarize the results of the audit. And the results for Bank School District are very good. They really couldn't be better. For the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion with no reservations. For state minimum standards, we found no exceptions or issues requiring comment. And there was no separate management letter issued. If we came across items that needed to be communicated to the board that were of concern in our audit, that would be an management letter, so we didn't have one of those. Further down on the same page, we noted we had no difficulties dealing with management and performing our audit, and we had no disagreements about accounting or auditing issues. The district is always wonderful to work with. Joni does a fantastic job, as you know, the rest of the staff involved in the finances. Everything went really well this year. Obviously, it was an odd year because we performed our audit remotely. And so the district did a great job in helping accommodate that. So thank you for that, and really good job for all your work. And then further in the letter, we cover, you keep going, I think it's next page. Oh yeah, other matters, future accounting and auditing issues. This is just a summary of new accounting standards that'll come out in the next year or two. And we always like to keep you informed of that because it's good to know what's coming, and we'll work with management to make sure everything is implemented in a timely manner. So overall, I think that is all that I wanted to go over specifically, but if anyone had any questions about the audit or our processes, I'd be happy to answer.
Any board member questions? Bill, Dan? Oh,
No, I'm good. Looks good. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you very much, Tara.
Thank you.
Joni, did you want to comment?
No, just thank you, Tara. Thanks for presenting that.
All right, well, let me know if you need anything else. And in the meantime, have a great evening and a happy holidays.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you, Tara.
Bye.
Bye.
Moving on to 3.0, as mentioned, there's no audience comments on the Zoom, but Jeff is available by phone or email if anyone on the Zoom has any comments or questions for him. 4.0 consent agenda. I will take a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
I'll
I'll
second.
second. There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you. Discussion items. Jeff, 5.1 COVID-19 update.
All right, so.
Really nice to get that one off our agenda sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah, a couple of years from now, maybe. So I'm gonna go through a bunch of stuff here and just bear with me a little bit. There's quite a bit to update you on. We also have quite a few staff members on here as well who are interested in some of these updates. So first thing, I just want to review the past 8 months a little bit. And as I sit through these meetings, not just these meetings, but the ones with ODE and the other superintendents and other educators, it's important to remember why we got into this. And we got into this because we like working with kids. We like to motivate them. We like to see them succeed. And that is still true today. And as a parent, also speaking as a parent, same thing. I mean, we want our kids to succeed, and we want them to do well in life and teach them life lessons and things like that so they can do well once we get a little older, and then they kind of hopefully will take care of me when I get older. And then, there's many things I enjoy about this job, and there's many things I enjoy about being a parent, like coaching my children. And as we start to feel sorry for ourselves a little bit, and the stressfulness of this situation, and whether we are in education, it's also to remember that every other person is going through this as well. So as we get stressed out, it's always important to remember that everybody else is stressed out as well. And there's different levels of stress and anxiety, and some people are doing okay and some people are not. And that includes adults, and that includes our students. As we looked at the surveys, and this was about a month and about a week, we sent out a survey and we asked parents, would you send your kids back to school? And we got a pretty good sample size, and it was about 80% said, yes, I would send my child back to school, and 20% said, no, we're not ready yet. Now, that survey could be sent out every week, and depending on the numbers and everything else, it could vary a little bit, but that was not that long ago when numbers started ramping up. we could get same results if we sent out staff surveys as well. And it's been a while since we sent out staff surveys. I know the union had sent one out, you know, would you be comfortable coming back? And it at that time was about a 50-50 split. And I could survey next week and it might be lower, and I could survey a month from now and it could be higher. But with all of that being said, it's trying to determine what is right and what is wrong. And the reason we are here are for our students. And as we make these decisions, and as I make decisions and the administrators make decisions and teachers make decisions, you know, hundreds daily, we always need to keep our students at the forefront of our decisions, but also remember that everybody else is going through the same thing we are and trying to navigate this. We faced a lot of struggles over the last 8 months. And if you think back in March, we were sitting at a board meeting and we just passed the SIA plan. And at that time it was fully funded, and we were going to add approximately 9 staff. And that was addition of counselors, teachers, all sorts, classified staff. And that was my first board meeting where I gave a coronavirus update. And it didn't even refer to it as COVID-19 that time, but I just gave a coronavirus update. And I believe that same week, that Friday, the governor announced, as school districts started to shut down, the governor announced we were going to take an extended spring break, and that turned into an extended supplemental packets, and that extended into the comprehensive distance learning. And then we got into the summer, and in June, they came out with guidance that was going to allow us to be in person and be in a hybrid. And so we worked on that plan all through June, July. And about the end of July, as we were going back and forth and figuring out plans, we were finally to a point where we were thinking we might have a plan to get students in person. And they changed the guidance again, and we were to start in CDL. So we have been in CDL basically for the last 3 months of last school year and the first 4 months of this school year, close to 7 months of learning online and trying to help our students succeed and doing as much as we possibly can. Staff have lost person-to-person interaction, and students especially have lost person-to-person interaction. My philosophy of education is, and I've always described it to my students this way, especially when I was in the math classroom, I believe that 80% of school is learning how to act socially and learning how to become a good citizen and learning how to organize and all of those types of things. And I know that's a little skewed, that we have to be focused on academics, but academics become more focused as we get into the high school. But I think of my own children sitting at home, 4th, 6th, and 8th grade, and what they're missing of those years as I think back to when I was an 8th grader in middle school. And I wouldn't go back to middle school if you paid me $1,000 right now. But when the middle school is that awkward stage of becoming a young adult and having more responsibility and more freedoms and learning how to make proper decisions. Mr. Pence and I had a conversation the other day. You know, we were talking about we've done so many things to help these kids and interventions, and we making phone and all these other options that we are doing, that our staff is doing, that our teachers are doing, and helping these kids. And the challenge of online is, as we try to reach out to help these kids, we could call 10 kids in a day and we may reach 4 or 5 of them, or we might get a return call from 2 or 3, or maybe an email, where a teacher or an administrator or whoever, an adult in the building, could talk to 10 kids in less than 5 minutes during passing time and touching base with them. So these are the struggles and the challenges. And the reason I mention this, you know, grades have been in the news. They've been around the country. They're lower. Some districts are really struggling. I will say we are struggling more than we usually do. I think we have achieved, not to the best of our ability, but pretty close, but we're not there yet, and we still have work to do. We sent out surveys to parents. I included those in your packets. We did receive several comments, and the administrators and the staff are looking through those comments. But if you look through, and I'll just tell you the trends, that overall, parents are happy for the most part in what we've accomplished in this CDL model. But there are so many comments that I want my kid back in person. They need social interaction. They need this, they need that. And then there's the other theme that was there was the technology issues. My internet isn't great. Computer doesn't work great. I can't get on the Zoom calls, stuff like that. So you saw 3 themes in those surveys. I want my kid in person. They need social interaction, and the technology issues, which all 3 have been issues throughout this. I will say to all the people that are on the meeting tonight that this year is not lost. Education is happening. Our teachers, our staff, our admin, our parents, our students are doing good things. There are a lot of students who are succeeding in this model, but there are a lot of students who are struggling. I don't worry too much about, you know, as we get, I worry the most about our juniors and seniors as they get ready to go to college. I think the other students, we can and we will catch up if we need to. A numbers update. So as you know, or you have seen, I included that in your packet. We're looking at over 500 cases over a 2-week period, and that puts our county in an extreme risk county. They recently shifted how they determine that. You have extreme risk, you have high, you have moderate, and I don't even know what the one where we wouldn't need to worry about it anymore. The majority of counties are either in high or at extreme risk. So the one thing that we have to do moving forward is, even when a county risk level is at extreme, we can still continue limited in-person instruction. We can still continue athletic practices. OSAA recently announced a new schedule to the seasons coming up and have pushed it out into February. We are optimistic that we are going to be able to play some sports this year, but currently full contact sports and indoor sports are not allowed. So we will continue to move forward with our limited in-person plans, and we will continue to move forward with athletics. I did send an email to staff today, letting them know what we were looking at after we returned from Christmas winter break. And just to clear a few things up, we are still and have to follow the metric guidance. The only thing that we will be allowed to do in probably the next several months, unless the state makes an announcement or a change, but as we well know, the governor and ODE and OHA has a tendency to do that about once or twice a month. We will still continue to be limited in person. The email I sent today to staff maps out a plan in January, and I called it a transition plan, but I also called it a month. January is our planning month. It is time for us for staff to return to on-site on January 11th, to resume our limited in-person instruction on January 11th, and also to start high school athletic practices again on January 11th. And Mr. Buchanan has been working on that schedule. We have also had discussions to mirror our high school athletics with our middle school athletics, as other districts are doing this as well. And I just remind you that as of right now, we can only do outside. We cannot be indoors as far as athletic practices. So the first week that we are back, staff would have the option to continue to work off site, because of that will give about 10 days from the end of the break or New Year's Eve to self-quarantine if staff would like to do so. On January 11th through the 15th, like I said, we will resume limited in person where we left off. And then the 18th through the 22nd, the third week, we are going to train all staff in our protocols and how students enter into the buildings, and how, once they get into the buildings, what are the classroom procedures, and start to talk to teachers about classroom setups and how we do lunch or restroom protocols. Limited in person, we are only allowed 2 hours. So lunch is kind of not a issue right now, but it could be down the road. So the question to me that I received a few emails is, are we returning to students February 1st? And the metrics don't allow us to do that, but it does allow us to do limited in person. January is our last month of the semester and basically the school year for those first 4 classes at the high school level. We have a lot of students that have needs in our CTE. We have a lot of students that are not passing, and we have to be able to get students on site to make sure that they succeed. So to answer, questions that I've received today, so limited in-person instruction will resume. We're gonna start where we left off. Our limited in-person teams will continue to meet and identify kids who need to come in. And this January is a very important month for our high school kids and our high school credit. We also have some middle school students that are struggling, and it is important that we get students in to help with failing grades at that level as well. As we look at all of these options, and I think it's very important, we've pretty much, I don't want to say used all of our tools in our tool belt, but the main one we have left is limited in person and athletics, and being able to have our staff and our students interact. It is very important that our students receive in person, whether that be in athletics or academics. I know there's a lot of concern out there, and I'm talking to the board, but I'm also talking to all of the people on the meeting tonight. I know there's a lot of concern out there. I'm concerned as well. But it has been shown across not only this state, but other states as well, and across the world, that if we can train properly and get proper safety protocols in place, we can be successful bringing more students on site. And just to conclude, and then I'll open it up to the board to ask questions and invite the principals to join me as well. I know people are frustrated, whether that be parents, students, staff, myself some days. But I will say that we have achieved great things. But it's getting to the point where we're 8 months into this. I am hoping we can turn a corner here. And I would encourage everybody who is listening tonight to tell 5 people that the Thanksgiving surge was real and the numbers went up. And I heard in a Washington County meeting today from Washington County Health that the numbers are starting to level off again, at least the daily rates. But we have a 2-week break coming up, and we could see another potential surge after the break. And I would encourage, and I know some people on this meeting probably have plans, and I get it, but I would encourage all of you to curve the surge a little bit, and because that's, the more we do that, the quicker we get our students back in. The other thing I would just like to say, that just to finish up, is this planning month we have coming up is critical to our success. Now, we might be in February and numbers might be through the roof, and maybe we only have 10 kids on site, or maybe athletics had to be suspended for a week, or maybe we are up to 20 per school. Maybe we're up to 50 per school. Maybe we're up to 100 per school. That's for the limited in-person and the teachers and the staff to figure out what students need our help and what students need to be on site. But we need to be proactive. We need to be proactive in our planning. We need to be proactive in training our staff. And I'm asking my staff that we train this month, that we get prepared to welcome back our kids, whether that's February 1st, whether that's March 1st, whether that's April 1st, whether that's 10 kids, 20 kids, 50 kids, 100 kids. Limited in person is pretty flexible, but we have to get those protocols in place. The Lippy teams at each school, they will continue to plan. I have also asked the administrators to start planning potentially for a hybrid and potentially when we return to in-person completely. And again, the virus will determine the timeline, but we need to get prepared now. And I think that is what I have at this point to the board. I know that was a lot of information, but that's where we are at. I continue to have conversations with the union each week. We talked about this last week, and I know my email might have not been as clear as possible because there's just so many details to all of this stuff. So that's where we are at. I would now ask Mr. Pence to maybe unmute the principals or board members if you have questions for me. It was a lot of information.
I have a couple of questions. Also, one minor observation. You listed 3 things that you saw as trends in the study. Another one I was pleased to see was pretty much across the board, parents seem to be pleased with the level of communication and access they have and can get with the district. And I think that's really important, and I appreciate that very much. I was a little unclear when you said pick up where we left off. And you're doing additional training for protocols. Pick up where we left off when? Just before Christmas break? I sense that you're inferring that you're going to attempt, if it's possible, to increase the amount of in-person instruction.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Is you're going to do more protocol training so that you can increase that as much as possible?
Yeah, so I want to do the protocol trainings just so we're prepared to increase it if that's the option we have. And also if the state announces anything else. And what I mean by where we left off, we had about 10 kids at the high school. We had a handful at the middle school, and we had about 10 or 15 at the elementary. So we're going to pick up with those kids that were coming in prior to suspending Lippy, which was right around the governor's freeze. I think it was the week before Thanksgiving, and start having conversations with our Lippy team, not only this week, and because, and also to everybody on this call as well, and also to the board members, there is so much planning that's going to need to go into this as far as transportation goes and everything else, and planning bus routes and all of that. So it's going to take a month to really get everything in place to where we have the option to start bringing in more kids. However, we have enough staff trained right now. We trained there was probably 10 of us in the initial training with the nurse of the entry protocols and things like that we could potentially increase Lippy immediately with the staff that we already have trained and staff that are and myself being included, that are willing to take groups.
Also, you alluded to about a 50% sentiment by the staff of their, and I wasn't sure whether that was their desire to return to campus or their willingness to return to campus. What is the state of mind of staff about spending? It sounds like you're anticipating them under any circumstances being on site more.
Yeah, so that, what I referred to there was when we first started discussions way back when, and Tony's on this meeting tonight, and he can survey his staff again. But at that time, it was about 50% were willing to be back in front of kids, and 50% had concerns about that. So just like today, when I sent the email, I got 2 emails about serious concerns, and I got 2 emails from staff thanking me on moving forward. So it's hard to determine, especially when you get these splits. And some teachers would tell me, if I said, hey, you can have 10 kids in front of you tomorrow, they would do it. And some it's going to take safety protocol training and everything in between to make the anxiety level go down enough to where they're comfortable.
So you're not trying to indicate that there's been a change in the sentiment about being on site or not necessarily. It's, as far as you know, it's what it's been for a while now. Is there any flexibility on being able to bring the staff back who does want to come back? And more, to a higher extent, and those who don't to a lower extent? Can there be some variability? I realize that you might ask again and you may get a different split regardless of what you get. Is there any latitude in kind of varying? I mean, it doesn't strike me that there's a lot of there's a big difference in workload, whether they're on site or not. They got a lot to do no matter what. And so I suspect it's not being on site, I suspect it's not if they don't want to be on site, I don't suppose it has anything to do with wanting to do their job, or I'm sure they do. So it's just a fear factor. So is there any flexibility in bringing more staff who are willing to and want to be, and those who don't, allow them to not be?
Yeah, so I've had individual meetings with some staff about what you're talking about. I think it is important, though, that if we're going to be training staff in safety protocols, that I think every staff member is going to have a role. I think there's going to be a point, it may, and will, it's hard to answer that question. So I might be flexible for another month and a half, but then a month and a half from now, we might need every single staff member to have a limited in-person group, for example. So, you know, those are conversations I can continue to have with the union and continue to have with staff, but it's important that all staff are trained in protocols, because there will be a time that we are going to need all staff members on site.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for administrators or Jeff from board members?
Well, are we going to hear the administrators talk, the principals?
Or
Jeff,
yeah, I mean, did you have specific questions for? I mean,
no, I didn't know if they were also going to present something maybe specific from their school or not. But if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, I didn't tell him to
Okay.
present anything specific, but I was having them on to answer any questions you may have based on their reports or anything you've heard from me.
Yeah. So I think at the last board meeting, we were talking about the number of kids that were currently failing. We're on track to fail in both the high school and the middle school. And I was just wondering if Jacob or Darla, if you guys had numbers of kind of what that ended up being, and if you could share that with us. If you don't, that's fine too.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I don't have the exact number in front of me, Ron, but I know that in the board report for the middle school, and Leanne can help out with this if she remembers it differently, but we had twice as many students this year receive, or this first quarter, receive a failing grade in one of their classes as we normally do. So we had, a fairly significant, I would say that's significant increase in the number of students who were failing at least one class. So we had a good number on honor roll. Like Jeff said, we have a lot of students who are doing well and who are moving right along. And then we have students who are struggling, whether it's one class or whether they're kind of struggling across the board. We see that struggle happening too. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
Yeah,
kind of
it does. Yeah, no, thanks.
I'd be curious a little bit more, being just simply put, do you think it has improved from the report you gave last month or deteriorated further?
I think that we have had a really hard last couple of weeks. I think from Thanksgiving, even a little bit before it till now, I think it's been very hard. I think that when we heard that, the governor announced the freeze and I think the holidays coming up, I think that we have struggled to keep students engaged even more so probably in the last month or so than we did at the beginning of the school year. And we've had a lot of conversations as an admin team around that about it. Just seems like there's, everybody's carrying a little bit heavier of a weight right now, it seems like, and the kids are struggling a little bit more. We've been trying to find, some more fun things, more lighthearted things to kind of infuse into their day. But yeah, we are concerned that it seems like it's been a little bit more difficult in the last month.
Hear me, Ron?
Yep, I can. Jacob, thank you.
Shouting across the room at Jeff's computer here. So yeah, I tried to share that in our board report. When we met at the last board meeting, there were several weeks to go prior to the end of the quarter, that first quarter. And about midway through the quarter, the grades were, we had quite a few kids doing well, but we did have a significant increase in the number of our failing grades. I think it was around 120 students who had one or more Fs. By the end of the quarter, that was able to drop by about half. A lot of those students were close to passing. Teachers did a great job. Credit to our staff working with students and trying to help organize of what specific things they needed to do to get those grades up. Some missing assignments, redoing assessments, and just helping those students to get everything done that they needed to at the end of the quarter. I don't think there's any one specific reason. I think, as we mentioned before, some technical difficulties with some of the kids struggling with internet connection and things like that. Throughout the term. There's also just a little bit of procrastination that we see also during regular school years that was maybe amplified during distance learning. But here we are, we're about halfway through the second quarter. When we come back from the break, we have 4 weeks. And again, our failing grades are high, again, higher than what we're usually used to seeing at the end of a quarter, but I'm confident that our students are going to step up and our staff are going to be great about working with kids, and that will also get better. It's kind of one thing that we're seeing right now is a ton of kids with A's, and there's a lot of kids with F's, and there's a few in between. The kids that are accessing it and doing well are doing very well. But rather than that kind of typical bell curve that we see with a few kids getting A's and a few kids getting F's, and it's actually higher in the middle, we're seeing the opposite now, where there's a lot of A's and F's and not much in the middle. So the kids that are doing well are doing very well, and the kids that are struggling are really struggling. So that's where we're at the high school right now. And we've been trying to talk with staff and figure out ways that we can help engage those kids that are maybe it's a lack of engagement or lack of motivation. I think some of our kids are really struggling with that piece right now, and something that came through on the survey with the parents as well that you guys saw in the high school was concern for students' social emotional health right now. And so at that high school level. So those are the things we're focusing on right now at the high school.
One last question for you, Jacob. When you're trying to do your outreach, and you mentioned that you're calling 10 different kids and you might get one coming back, do you get a sense of what that is? Or are they just school out of sight, out of mind, or are they working, or what's
Anecdotally, I don't have the exact data, but anecdotally, we do have more kids working high school age that are getting jobs right now. I mentioned that might be something that we might see this year, that we see more kids trying to do that and doing school at night, which is not ideal when missing that live instruction during the day. But we don't, as far as our student information system and things like that, we don't have student cell phone numbers. And I think if I was to have every kid's cell phone number and texted them, my response would be a lot better than calling them, leaving a message. So, or emailing students. Sometimes I'll email a student and I don't hear back for weeks, or 2-3 days go by before they respond. So there's definitely a lag in that communication piece.
Understand that. I have one of those. I think the last thing I wanted to say is just to, I think this was mentioned at our last board meeting. I was at the OSBA conference, and it was a common topic. This is a statewide deal. It's not just banks that had, or seen a number of kids that were having problems and failing. And I think it's kudos to our high school staff for reaching out, and to the middle school staff. Don't leave them out either, but for reaching out and trying to get that closer to where it was being averaged. But I think it's a problem with this current model. So.
And I just want to say, my question following up on Ron's about the failing, please don't think that in any way it would infer that even what those numbers are is a reflection of any lack of effort on the staff's part. I don't have any question in my mind that you guys are looking for every opportunity to do everything you possibly can. And I realize you don't look at the statistics every day of your life. It's helpful sometimes for those of us on the outside, and particularly only speaking for me, I guess, to sometimes to be able to kind of watch those things might be an indicator of kind of maybe the results we're getting, maybe just the state of the union in terms of this whole environment we're in. But they are helpful to be able to kind of watch those things to see where they go.
Yeah. Definitely one data point that we use to measure how things are going, but there is a lot that we look at.
Jacob, I had a question kind of following up on this. So in Ben's report, he kind of gave the freshman on track information. And in your report, it looked like at least half of the failing students were able to kind of recover by the end of the quarter from a third that were failing. But it doesn't seem like the freshmen were able to recoup the same way. Did you notice that upperclassmen were able to kind of get their stuff together towards the end because they were kind of probably used to doing that type of thing? But how do we address this with the freshmen?
Yeah, one of the things that one of our counselors, Ms. Villar, our new counselor, started as an idea that came from that freshman on track data is, and I'll just say that it's one of those things that they don't know us very well and we don't know them very well.
Yeah.
So we started every Friday going forward. We're going to have like a lunchtime meet and greet with the teachers where it's kind of more of a social. I think they played some games and it's like three or four teachers at a time every Friday for 15 minutes. And all the students are invited. I think we had about a quarter of the freshmen. I think there's something like 20 students and it's a pretty small freshman class. Log in and got really good feedback from the students and the staff. They had a lot of fun. And so that's something, just trying any way that we can reach out, make them feel part of the student body, welcome them into Banks High School, get to know them as people. So hopefully we can engage them and keep them motivated to keep working hard. So I agree with you that, yeah, the sophomores, juniors, seniors, sophomores at least had 1 year, but junior, seniors, they've been here for quite a while. They know most of the teachers and they were able to step up. And freshmen, it's also an age thing too, responsibility and organization and things like that at that age can be tough. So it's asking a lot more maybe of a 14 or 15-year-old to be able to do those same things and keep up with those deadlines and keep track of that. And monitoring their grades and see what they need to do in communication. So it's a lot.
I have a general comment about getting the kids back to limited time. I just feel like, I mean, I know there are restrictions and everything else, but I feel like January 11th may be too late, with the end of the term being January 30th, to get some of these kids back and get them back on track, I guess. It's more of a comment than anything else. I have a question for Marjorie. In your report, obviously you don't really have grades that were given out at the end of the term, I guess. Do you have a feeling of how your students are achieving? I mean, I know last time you said that you thought that they were struggling as well, but I don't know if you had any updates. Is Marjorie muted?
Yeah, she is.
Go unmute here.
Sorry, I apologize in advance, but I'm living in a fifth wheel right now while we remodel our house, and our walls are paper thin, so it's super loud in the background. So yeah, I mean, I look at the test scores, the diagnostic assessments, and they're a little bit lower than what we would, regularly see. But there are a lot of students who are achieving, and all students really, except for those students that we just cannot connect with, are making progress. Mm-hmm. So our focus has kind of gone to more of the social emotional, and what can we do to really engage our students and try to get those other students who are not connecting back on, if possible. I think, Ron, you had asked if Jacob had a sense of why we can't connect with some of these students, why they're not participating. And when I reach out to families, it's just a lot of personal kind of strife and struggles going on. Everybody has their own story. And, for some of these families, it's just almost impossible to get their kid on school every day. So we're providing workbooks. Our teachers are sending packets. We're dropping books off at people's driveways. But we're really going to start doing some virtual student of the month assemblies, and, Mrs. Smith and I are going to pop into classrooms and just do prize patrol and have a spinning wheel and just kind of fun things to just engage our students. And, there's a lot of really solid learning going on. But there, like I said, we do have many students who we just are just really struggling. And so those are the students that we're targeting right now for limited in person.
And just to comment, I'm wondering if you could reach out to NHS. I think they're spinning their wheels in trying to figure out how they can help you guys, but they're really excited to do so. I just think it's going to take a little effort probably from your side to
they reached out.
Momentum.
They reached out, and that's another thing I'm really excited about, is partnering with the leadership students and the National Honor students at the high school. And so they're also planning some great things, like some evening or afternoon homework help, tutoring. There's also sessions where it could just be a social time for students who want to get on and kind of hang out with their friends. They don't get a chance to do much often. And like a virtual game night, things like that. So we're trying to partner with them, and we'll get those things going, after we return from break. So yeah, for sure.
Any other questions from the board? Around and check on you. Good, everybody good? Okay, I'm going to move on to 6.1, district policies and administrative regulations. This is an action item, but I'm thinking we can just go through the process, and if there's discussion and we decide not to vote, that will be okay. I'm not sure if people are ready, but I will go ahead and take a motion on the district policies and administrative regulations.
I'll make a motion, we approve the district policy changes.
Raymond, second?
I'll
Second.
Now any discussion? Okay. Go ahead and vote on all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Looks like we passed the district policies and administrative regulations. As long as that was you not raising your hand, Raymond, just voting.
That was
Okay,
raising,
okay.
that was voting, yes.
That was a yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, superintendent comments.
Just real quick on my board report, I included the Washington County Educational Summit coming up January 14th. I think it's important that we have at least one of you there, if not all of you, if you want to attend. It will be virtual. This ties in with, we're about ready to start the legislative session, and it's a regular one. And as of right now, the governor's announced budget for the state school fund is 9.1 billion. And that's a long ways away from current service level. So that would be a hit. Now the governor's budget usually starts below and they try to move it up. We do have good news though. As of right now, they're projecting that Measure 98 will be fully funded as well as the SIA. So we can go back to our SIA. It's going to be very important as we start to get back that not only are we going to need to bring back staff that we laid off, but also even potentially hire more staff. And we will be able to do that with the SIA money. So 9.1 billion does not get us current service level. They're saying it's 9.5 to 9.6 billion. I've heard some school districts say it's almost 10.2 billion for them to get it to current service level. So that would be a pretty big hit. Also, other topics that are coming up during the legislative session is to give relief on COVID lawsuits to school districts and other, I believe, businesses. They were going to do a short session, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But that's another one, is the liability of COVID in the schools. And because the insurance carriers will not cover that. So they're trying to do some legislative action around that. This is going to be very important. I can speak for the board and I can contact Janine Solomon and a couple other legislators that I know at some point, or I can give you contact information, but the more they hear from us, the better. Janine Solomon is outstanding. She's an awesome legislator and a huge proponent of education and our staffs and boards and teachers and everybody. So she's a good one to have on our side. So that's all I wanted to add to what I had to say. I did kind of update you in there in the middle, but I think I updated quite a bit tonight on where we are at.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, go around with the board. How about Ron? Any comments?
I guess I just wanted to kind of touch base on what, Jeff, one of the things that you mentioned as you went back through the COVID timeline. I remember the outpouring of support for the class of 2020 seniors and the fact that their graduation, they missed graduation basically. And my daughter's a senior, I think, as most of you know, and what I'm looking at is her missing almost her entire senior year. And I just adamant to all those people that are on is, really think twice about whatever your plans are for this Christmas season, holiday season. Think about safety, because really we are all in this together. And it's not just those seniors of 2020, but this is the senior class of 2021. And I just I'm hopeful that the kids get back to school. I'm hopeful, not optimistic. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Ron. Raymond?
Just want to comment on, Jeff, your presentation on the COVID update. I want to thank you for putting so much emphasis on doing whatever it takes, safety protocols, training, but getting as many students as possible back into school. And that's the probably the strongest I've seen you talk about wanting to come back and doing whatever it takes, everybody back in. And I want to thank you for that. That was just thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Dan?
I just want to say, to administrators and especially to the teachers and staff that hang in there. I think you have absolutely the kids' intentions in mind, and I know that we're all tired of this situation, but please just keep doing what you're doing because you're really making a difference, and have a good holidays.
Thank you, Dan. Will?
Mostly I would just echo what Raymond and Dan said about both those things. Jeff, I appreciated your presentation very much, and your focus on doing what we can. And Dan's thanks for your hard work. I work primarily with business leaders, and they're in very, very much the same exact state of mind, very tired of this and very frustrated and very almost discouraged. But knowing that that's all we got to do, so we're doing it just like you guys are, and appreciate that very much. I would say maybe we would consider it a high point. You probably all heard as well that the first vaccine was administered today. So I don't know. Maybe it's one step in the right direction, and maybe we can find a silver lining in there somewhere. But in general, I think we're all in this together, and I appreciate everybody's hard work. I don't have a doubt in my mind that everybody's putting everything they have into this. I know you are, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Will, I'd just like to thank the staff again, and thanks everyone who's on this meeting and Zooming once again, and thanks for being here and your commitment to the district and the kids, and wish everybody a happy holiday and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Holidays.
So.